Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town of Weymouth and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, here's Bob Hedlund.
Once again, welcome to another edition of Ask the Mayor. I'm Jim Melody, the citizen's advocate and inquisitor of our mayor, Robert Hedlund. Robert, another great day in the mayor's office. Thanks for inviting us in and the rest of the town to visit with you and fire any and all questions at you. Once again, we want to remind the people, Bob doesn't get a chance to see these questions before he is asked them. So most of them come his way for the first time he'll be hearing or seeing any of this
Which we've been criticized for doing it that way, by the way.
Yeah,
people have intimated that it shows a lack of preparation.
We can please some of the people all the time and all the people some of the time. We want to say thanks, everybody, for tuning in the summertime in particular. We are in our summertime casual best here. Bob's wearing a snazzy black polo shirt, and I'm wearing the best of my leisure attire as we segue into important and need-to-know information here at Ask the Mayor.
And just in the interest of full disclosure, our intrepid producer, Mary Heinrichs, wanted to remove our new mascot because she says I'm lower than the mascot. And number one, we've become attached to the mascot.
We like the mascot. It's a beaver. He's a builder.
And it was given to the town by the Sears Roebuck Foundation and the National Park Service for some great work done by Weymouth High School kids in 1966. We don't know what they did. We would love to find out. But the chair is kind of low, and I'm utilizing this chair due to my injury, which is persisting and nagging. So we're taking function over form, Mary, so we apologize.
But we have grown very, very close to our beaver family. Perhaps we're going to have to start a naming contest to give that mother and her little baby. I don't know what you call a baby beaver. You have any idea?
No.
Maybe we can get to the bottom of all this stuff in future episodes.
And Mr. X, if you're watching, I know it's not a serious topic, but you're welcome to provide a name for us.
Mrs. X, perhaps. We could go that route. We'll see. Wants to ask you a question is, Dear Mayor Hedlund, I sincerely hope that your leg injury continues to heal and that you're progressing according to...
Thank you very much.
Any thoughts on that, by the way? When would you actually be able to walk around? Is it upcoming, or are you still weeks away?
I don't have a clear signal from my surgeon or the PT people.
Okay. We'll keep focused on that, though, and updates will be included in future shows. The addition of the Mayor's Monthly Forum, along with Ask the Mayor, is a very good combination. So congratulations. That Mayor's Monthly Forum is very well done. As we look to our WETC friends, the Monthly Forum has been very good, particularly the episode with Weymouth's Planning Director, Robert Luongo. There's no doubt...
I interrupted him too much.
Oh, are you getting that as feedback?
I watched it, and I said, maybe I interrupted him too much, so we're going to have him on again.
Well, feels there's no doubt Mr. Luongo has extensive experience and brings a wealth of knowledge to the town. His 30-plus years in planning, community, and economic development are a key part to numerous town improvements and development. So it sounds like a great hire for you. I must say the combination of the two programs complement each other very well. I hope you continue to encourage residents to participate with questions and comments, good or bad. Here's the big payoff. My question, can residents find online a list of sidewalks or streets that will be repaired or improved in some sort of priority order? Regards, Mr. X. It's signed as well. Do we have a second Mr. X, or has he finally revealed himself?
But didn't you say his name in the beginning?
He said
maybe he wanted to be anonymous.
Wait a minute, and P.S. My first reaction to the gold elephant that now sits on the table during broadcast looks more like an ashtray. Perhaps you could replace the sand with the small plant. We've done better than that, Mr. X. We've moved in a whole different direction in the animal kingdom.
All right. So regarding Mr. Longo, tremendous hire. I'm very proud of the hire.
Good for you. Where did he come from, by the way? I don't know much about
it.
Well,
he had time in Weymouth. He'd been at a few places. Okay. He was the planner here for a while, and then left to become the planning department director in Saugus. Okay. But he is doing a phenomenal job. A lot of things going on, things that we will reveal as this show goes on, or communicate in other ways. But I am totally excited with his vision. We're so far been on the same page with just about everything, and he brings a lot of energy to the job.
It sounds exciting, and it sounds like a great hire.
So in answer to the question about paving, we get a lot of this. So bearing in mind that this town has appropriated between Back in 2010, about $500,000 a year for paving projects, road and sidewalk, up to the year before I came in this past year, a little over $2 million a year. So that's been the range. We are undertaking this year, bearing in mind it was my first budget, $5 million worth of paving projects underway now as we speak. So we're trying to focus on this. We're trying to get caught up. It's a significant increase. The DPW is working very hard to see that the money is actually spent and put in the ground and is on top of our contractors. In addition to that, we funded a sidewalk paver that will be operating in-house to help us catch up with some of the sidewalks. So roughly of that $5 million, I think $750 of that is going to some sidewalk repairs. The rest will be for roads. And as far as the process goes, and this is the part where people get a little bit confused, but number one, obviously based on condition of the road and need and rating. Secondarily to that is proximity to schools, routes to school. And of course, I don't know what good that is when we haven't touched sidewalks in years, but we're trying to now focus on doing road projects and sidewalk projects in conjunction with road projects. A good example of that would be the just completed Essex Street project that you mentioned on a previous show. Also, another example that will be underway by the time the show airs would be on Chard Street, which is in atrocious condition. The sidewalks will be done in conjunction with the road work, and that's a road that kids travel to
high school.
Not only the high school.
No, Chapman School.
Chapman,
I call it high
but
school.
Libby Field.
Yeah.
People who want to get to Town Hall or the middle school, that's the route they're going to go if they're walking. We encourage walking. So you've got that consideration, the level of use, those three factors: condition, proximity to schools, et cetera, and use. And then if the road is slated for improvements, i.e. drainage, sewer, water lines, it won't be paved if in the near future it's scheduled to have that additional work done. A good example of that is, and I've been asked, why did Essex Street repaving stop at the junction with Spring Street? And it's because a new sewer main will be going in on that section of that road as part of the upgrades designed to service Southfield. So we're not going to pave a road that a year from now, even though we don't have that plan final with Southfield yet, Union Point.
Yeah, I was just going to correct you. That'll take a long time to get used to.
Yeah, so that will push it off the list, obviously. You're not going to pave a road and rip it up within a year or two.
Right.
The other thing is, if you live on a private way, we were prepared and willing, because of this large influx of appropriation for paving, we were willing to now try to catch up on private ways. This town has 300 and some odd unaccepted roadways that are considered private.
I live on one of them.
You live on one of them. It's a good example. Yeah. Even some of these are new subdivisions. I have been advised by a number of staff and a number of different departments that we cannot legally undertake that without some issues. So we have, and this is something that was a can that was kicked down the road. This should have been addressed a long time ago. We believe there's a loophole that exists for developers. We're calling it a loophole. They probably won't. But we have subdivisions being built now that we don't have a strong performance bond put in place, or they're using what we believe a loophole to not have to go through the process to have us accept the road. And what that means is, yeah, Weymouth has been plowing. We've been picking up your rubbish, but we're not responsible to fix the road when something goes wrong. So some of these newer subdivisions, people could be in for a rude awakening at some point.
I'm going to raise my hand because we found ourselves in the same class. We thought we were naturally part of the town system, and then we found out we got caught in the transition between the selectman situation to the mayoral situation.
Do you have a family? Do you have a residents association set up for that street?
No, it's only a 6-house cul-de-sac.
A homeowners association.
Negative. No.
Well, some of the developers have been putting in place a homeowners association.
Covenants and things.
And that's set up for the purposes of funding and maintaining the road. Now, we have other examples where Essex Heights Drive, for instance, the developer still owns the road to the center line.
Oh, no kidding.
Completely owns the road. So we're putting in place a process, A, to eliminate what we're describing as the loophole, and B, a process of which we're going to notify residents like yourself. You may or may not be happy with the letter you received from the town explaining the situation, but it's the reality, and we're suggesting a process by which we can address the issues on your road that needs to be addressed, and a process by which we will accept the road, and we're trying to streamline that process. So the legal department's been busy with that. Some of the roads that are newer construction over the last 20 years will be easier for us to go through that process, but we have roads that go back to the 1800s that have never been accepted.
Oh, that remain private.
So this is a nightmare. Yeah. It would be easy for me maybe just to kind of like brush it under the rug and not have to deal with it, but we think it's the right thing to try to address this problem for homeowners on streets like Baker's Ave that look like a bomb went off, that through no fault of their own, because the street goes back to the 1800s, that's a harder situation to deal with from our perspective than someone like yourself,
right,
that bought the house fairly recently, and I'm sure it was disclosed at the time you bought it. It should have been.
No, I'm shaking my head. I think
it's got to be somewhere in the deed or somewhere
probably.
that it recognizes what its legal status is.
Yeah, there was supposed to be some sort of metamorphosis over a 7-year period or something that it naturally matriculated as a town road. But I think it's confusing. I think there's a natural presumption that new home purchases are made. I know we did that. Of course, we're part of the town. We're paying taxes. Obviously, the kids go to schools, and you plow the roads and the trash, so on and so forth. I wish you the best because I know it's complex and it's certainly a complicated issue.
And the goal here is to use this additional appropriation. We're bonding $3 million now to do road work. And that is done. That was done with an eye towards addressing these unaccepted roadways and get it done.
Well, fortunately, we don't have any major or any sort of minor road issues, but obviously they developed over the course of time. All the best.
And as far as a list, I think he asked about a list.
Yeah, specifically where they might be posted.
Specific roads.
Yeah.
Of the 5 million.
He wants to know if there's online, could he find a list of sidewalks or streets?
Not yet, but as of this taping, by the time this airs, actually, we will have a list. We'll have a link to, you can go to the town website or the town Facebook page, which I know they'll put the graphic up for us, and we will have a list published by the time that this show airs, I would hope. At the time of this airing, I expect it to be on my desk any minute. So,
excellent.
Of the 5 million, approximately 1.6 million of that, 1.8 million of that is not finalized as to which streets.
Okay.
But if you live in a private way, for the moment, you're not going to find your street on that list.
Okay. Well, listen, there's a couple of shorter ones here, and let's see if we can get through these very quickly. Holly Stokes asks, when will our girls finally get to softball fields? They were promised to be ready this past spring, Mayor. Are you familiar with this?
Well, I inherited a situation with a lot of unrest on field.
What softball fields is she referring to in particular, do you know?
I don't know, but I have no idea which specific field she's talking about. She doesn't indicate that in the question, does she?
No, not.
Okay, so I can speak more general that we just had an extremely productive meeting on a couple of fronts. Number one, there's been a little bit of conflict between Park and Rec and the school department over school-controlled fields. A memorandum of understanding and agreement was signed this past week by the Recreation Department and the school department. So I think it was like brokering the Paris peace talks with the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese. So I think we have peace in our time on that front.
Pardon me for interrupting you, but you would naturally think in the situation you inherited here that those two departments would be talking and they'd all be hunky-dory historically.
I think
but that's something you had to manage, getting these two people to talk to each other.
I think with demand it's created conflict, and that's happened elsewhere too. It isn't just a dynamic with the rec and the schools. We see user groups competing and some frustration.
Yeah, sure.
So in this very room, we had an extremely productive meeting, and she asked a softball question. So specifically, we had representatives, and she might be citing this, but we had representatives of the girls softball league and every boys league in the town from every age bracket.
Oh, great.
And to my understanding, we have basically been able to address the needs moving forward of all the different user groups on locations, because we do have some changes coming with the level field project, et cetera.
Yeah.
And my understanding was we were looking for a permanent home for the girls' league, and we think we had a number of options for them. That'll be a permanent situation. I won't name all three options, I think, because I can't remember all three of them at the moment. But it seemed as though everybody was extremely happy, and the softball representative from that meeting was partially happy because we hadn't put the finishing touches on that. So I will follow up on that. But I know that the facility that's been offered to them, or a couple of the two of the three facilities that have been offered for their use moving forward in a permanent fashion, are excellent.
Awesome.
In excellent condition. And part of this was the one group that we hadn't walked out of that meeting fully resolved was boys Babe Ruth level. And one of the things that they were looking for was a lighted facility. And I'm extremely pleased to report here for the first time that we identified a location that we think will work. We've had some discussions with appropriate members of the town council, chair of the committee that oversees this, Jane Hackett, who was extremely helpful. She set the meeting up with all the user groups.
Great.
And we think that Weston Park is going to work, and that with the new
for the addition of lights, or does it have lights?
No, it doesn't have lights now, but with the work being done for the new library, we will be able to do a reconfiguration of the entire site and accommodate a Babe Ruth regulation size field for their use that will be lighted, and the site work will be tied in with the library project, and we're going to get an economy of scale there.
Dynamite.
And I've seen kind of a preliminary design that's awesome. I think it'll bring some vibrancy to the landing.
Sure.
It'll make for a nice little town center, town facility center with the library and the field, and some of the other work that's going on in the landing, private development-wise. We're trying to tie this in. There's one abutter that is coming to us with a proposal for his site. We're trying to work with him to create some additional access into the park site and the library site, and work with him in his design. So the planning department's really engaged in this. I'm very excited by it. I think it's going to help bring some major vibrancy to that end of the landing, and it'll tie in nicely with what's happening in the lower end of the landing with the DeLagus project, which around the time this airs, we'll probably have some public news about.
Oh, I can't believe driving.
The landing's going to be a real jump into the 21st century. It's going to be vibrant. It's going to be a nice place with a lot of activity. You know, that park at night isn't exactly the nicest place to be. There's a lot of miscreant activity going on there.
Yes.
And this, I think, will help us reclaim it.
Driving through the landing, for anybody who hasn't done that recently, you owe yourself a trip. You will not believe what's been taken down. It looks like it's going to be
it's not worth the trip yet.
Well, it's just interesting to drive and see that some of these old dilapidated buildings that were major eyesores are down, and it's an indication of progress.
Yeah, well, having a hole in the ground isn't progress in my mind yet. When the building starts going up, that'll be progress.
Every time I drive by the ye old mill grill, I shed a tear. It's a sad moment.
Just the brick grill.
The old brick grill, the mill grill. How's that? The side note, is that helping? Is that hurting your business down there at Foursquare? Is it a major
I don't
hassle?
know, because I'm disengaged from it.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get back to that perhaps at a future.
I'm strictly adhering to the charter, and I'm not interested in what my partner just does his thing and
moving forward.
That's it.
All right, well, listen, a couple other random questions.
I have eaten there a couple times.
I know I have, too. Great times, great meals. Little shot at Southfield. Chris Potter asks, why should we suffer because Southfield is sucking up all the water? After the town's post regarding voluntary conservation of water request was posted, what are your thoughts on that? Is Southfield really using a disproportionate amount of water?
No. I mean, well, first of all, I came into office with a water use agreement in place that Southfield's adhering to. In fact, under the existing agreements,
Union Point. Sorry.
I know.
Sorry, Union Point.
It's funny. I was in a meeting today with some representatives from the CEO of a European company that's looking to potentially locate their United States headquarters here.
Oh boy!
And a major deal And I didn't make the mistake once in the meeting with him. I was consistently on point, calling it Union Point. But so the existing agreement that's in place allows Southfield to use double the amount of water they're using today.
Oh, no kidding.
So they're not even anywhere near what the town previously had agreed to sell them on a daily basis. And in fact, they're at about half the consumption of what they're legally entitled to. So that's number one. Number two, Mr. Potter probably realizes that we're in the middle of a significant drought that we haven't seen in a decade, and that the projections are that it'll be worse than what we've even seen in a decade. So we've instituted a voluntary water ban, unlike some of the surrounding communities who have a mandatory water ban. Now, unfortunately, if the weather continues the way it's going, and usage continues the way it's going in this town, the reality is that we will be having to institute a mandatory water ban, whether we do it on our own or whether we have DEP come in and tell us to do it. So, you know, I can say that it's an us against them. You know, we joked in a previous show where we had North Weymouth people complaining about South Weymouth. You know, now the target is Southfield. But the reality is that Southfield's Union Point is a neighborhood of Weymouth, just the same way that Bicknell Square is a part of Weymouth, and Weymouth Landing is a part of Weymouth. So, you know, the folks there pay taxes. Some of the business ventures that are going to come in, we expect to be a major contributing factor to our commercial tax base. So it's part of Weymouth. Legally, they're using much less than they're entitled to. That was done by previous administrations, and that's the reality. And I can't control whether or not it rains.
It's been something else, I'll tell you. This summer's been just unbearable, from the heat to the lack of water. I think everybody's lost their lawn, if not their garden.
And by the way, we are working with the folks, the developers, Elstar at Union Point, on a permanent water solution that, you know, will not impact in any way, shape, or form how much water we're providing now.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, kind of a purposeful segue from water and landing to this specific question. I watched the forum today. So
can I clarify that last point?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Not the amount of water we're providing, but the amount of water legally they're entitled to. It won't, you know, it won't exceed that. It's going to be an outside source that they are forced to bring in, and that's what's in the enabling legislation.
Okay. Jerry Maha has a question about something that has been kicked around here in the past, too. Bob, he watched Forum today, and as you went through some of the upcoming projects, you got into the landing project. So I know we've spoken about this in the past, but why now, after approximately 100 years, does the brook require daylighting, he wants to know. Also, I've been living here in the landing for approximately 50 years, and remember the traffic from the shipyard at 4 o'clock when it was total gridlock. With the plans in place for a new development, I see gridlock returning. The landing is now and has merging traffic coming in from Braintree. Any particular plan to, you know, manage that aspect of it all?
Well, it's a state highway. I'm not sure how we're going to limit traffic. The reality is that traffic has gotten worse everywhere.
Sure. That's a fact.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the commute into Boston is worse than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Trying to get,
point A to point B around here.
You know, I can think of Beale Street in Hingham, you know, the north end of town off of 3A.
Sure.
It was a dead, sleepy road that they used to use to run the soapbox derby. You know, for remember the old soapbox derby? Are you old enough to remember?
Yeah, sure.
You know, that now that's like a thoroughfare. I mean, it's everywhere. The potential projects that we have going on the landing are not going to impact traffic. You know, to quote Mayor Sullivan in Braintree, the traffic in the landing stinks. It's not going to get any worse. But, you know, it's a rush hour dynamic. You get down there in the evening, it's actually not that bad. But in answer to the daylighting, we are under a mandate from the state. The town of Weymouth, a decade ago, during the Greenbush mitigation discussions, agreed as part of I was not part of that, but the town signed a deal, accepted the money to do the daylighting. The money's gone. The requirement is still there that we do it. And
congratulations on inheriting that one.
Well, and the state has engaged us now and has indicated this is something that they want to have done. And it's a focus not of the T, but it's a focus of the Department of Environmental Protection. And not only that, it is the right thing to do, because what was done there from an environmental standpoint 100 years ago, as he notes, was the wrong thing to do from an environmental standpoint. And, you know, as an example, we have the herring run in Weymouth, which is an important environmental resource. We saw, it's estimated that 500 herrings spawned in Whitman's Pond this year. 500,000, excuse me, 500,000. And that's a tremendous important resource for the fishing stocks that are in Massachusetts Bay and in Georges Bank. So the hope is that you bring some of the species back that we drove out by covering up the smelt brook. Braintree's doing its part on their side to try to do that. And, you know, so it's a twofold thing. A, it's the right thing to do, but we're forced to do it. Do I want to spend $1.5 million to do that? No, I have other priorities I'd like to see us do first, which is why we are seeking, thus far with some success, a MassWorks grant that the state will participate in and fund it, because that daylighting is being done in conjunction with the Delagus redevelopment project, and it's enough of a private investment in the landing that triggers consideration for the MassWorks grant. And the two are tied together. It provides access to the train station, the walking path that'll be adjacent to the daylighting, the right-of-way Delagus is giving us in these negotiations and in this deal, provide that access. So there's a whole bunch of elements to this that allow us to qualify for the MassWorks grant. And if we're lucky, the state's going to come to the table with anywhere between $1.5 million to $2 million for us to do that.
Oh, fantastic.
And by the way, from an engineering standpoint, you mentioned earlier the old brick grill. For us to remove that, it has to be done in conjunction with some engineering work on the daylighting. So if you're going to tear that building down, you're exposing the brook anyway.
Right. Because
it sits on top of the brook.
Yeah.
So all these things are kind of intertwined. He asks a great question. I hope he understands the answer.
From an aesthetic point of view, I think it's kind of, I can't wait to see what the landing looks like when it's all said and done. We want to remind everybody, and we've perpetually commented over the course of the last couple shows about the volume of questions we're getting, but we do want to remind everybody, please keep the questions coming in. Best way to reach us is via askmayorbob@gmail.com. AskMayorBob@gmail.com is the best way to reach us. We're very grateful again for the response and the support we get as we cruise through town.
And I look forward in a future episode of sitting upright in a chair that doesn't make me look like I'm about how tall?
Ha! Well, listen, this question is going to be our final one. It's coming before, and we do have our friends from Comcast here, but it seems like it's on people's minds. Several residents continue to inquire as to why they don't have another option when it comes to cable TV. Why do we only have Comcast? And
you want to come over and answer this one? This is like a daily question.
Yeah, it comes up on my end, too. I'm just walking around.
Obviously, he missed the episode where we talked about this before.
Length. Yeah, but it's worth
we'll answer it. Because we get so many, and we have a little update on this too.
Oh, great.
So, number one, Verizon has no interest pretty much anywhere right now.
They had said that in the letter.
Making the investment in the community to wire the community. It's not what they're doing these days. That's part of the question. And I'm not sure what the current I can't remember right now off the top of my head what the current Comcast contract allows for in terms of competition, if it gives an exclusive or not. But the previous administration, previous mayor, signed a 10-year extension just before we took office. I think it was like about 2 months prior, if not less. What was the date? Do you remember?
Yeah.
December? Okay, so it was
31st.
Okay, so it was less than a month before we took office. There was a 10-year extension signed with Comcast. So those two factors alone. Now, adding to this, I did have the vice president of Verizon in here since we last taped an episode of this show to hear it from the horse's mouth and to press them. Is there anything we could do to facilitate this? Is there any interest? And although a very nice gentleman and very insightful into the inner workings of the cable industry, it was a definitive no. Verizon, it's not the business model these days. They're not coming to a place like Weymouth anytime soon.
Okay.
So it's the sad answer to that question.
It's a one-horse town for right now, but we'll see which way the wind blows. It's always changing in that industry, and who knows.
Let me ask you this. It's been suggested that we looked into maybe a partnership with Braintree, who's able to provide through their electric company, Braintree Electric Light Department, otherwise known as their acronym BELD.
BELD, yes.
That somehow we could partner with them because BELD provides cable service to the town in a competitive fashion. We believe our interpretation is, and town solicitor is looking into this in a little more detail, not to get you WETC people too nervous, but probably doesn't affect you anyway. But we think that the state law governing, the initial read is that the state law governing municipal lighting plants would preclude them from doing this with us.
Well, I know we're looking to sign off here, but...
And by the way, that was a suggestion, I think, one of someone who's written to us before, Mr. McDougall, Gary McDougall, I believe, suggested that. If not him, it was someone else.
Well, in a future episode, I'm going to make sure I make a note to ask you about the fact that Braintree has their own electric company, Hingham's got their own electric company. It seems like there's a lot of value there. I will be curious as to how they got into that utility service providing business. And, has that ever been discussed on the Weymouth issue? Yeah, I bet. But it looks to be great value there. I know, talking to Mayor Sullivan and some of the folks at Hingham.
Well, it's an even bigger benefit to Mayor Sullivan because Braintree's a generator. They generate their own power.
Wow, something else. Well, listen, it looks like we're on our way to wrapping up another episode. We thank everybody for tuning in. We want to remind everybody, askmayorbob@gmail.com. Any final words of wisdom, Mayor, as we close out?
No, I hope to be upright in a future episode. Sorry about that, Mary. She's saying I'm too slouched down. Maybe you can do something with the camera angle.
I'm thinking somebody could send in a couple phone books that you could put your butt down on and maybe lift you up sky high. And we want to ask everybody and remind them to tune into the Munsters, appearing right after our show tonight.
I think it was the Addams Family.
Dun, 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 dun.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.